Yeah, can we just go to the link so people can see that?
Yeah.
So my understanding is that well,
Where is
let's,
it?
oh,
Sorry. I can't find it. It's not that. Huh. Okay, I found it.
okay,
I just have to move my screen, so
okay,
sorry
awesome.
about that. There we
Okay.
go.
All right, so you can see that we've had kind of two phases of emergency childcare grants, phase 1 and phase 2. And that information is all there. What is happening right now is in that last strip, Margie, I think you have to scroll all the way down. Yep, the supplemental and opportunity zone grants. So as I said when we talked last week, childcare providers awarded in phase 1 and phase 2 have the opportunity to accept supplemental corona relief funds, CRF funds, through the Early Learning Division Emergency Childcare Grant Program. No childcare provider needs to reapply. It'll be distributed by provider type. Recipients of phase 1 and phase 2 have been notified. Those notifications were going out last week. We were starting to get signed agreements back last Thursday. There is a frequently asked questions document, Margie, if we want to go to that, in both English and Spanish. And I think this is the most up-to-date information available to all of you. It's updated on a regular and ongoing basis. Here you can see, very important questions like what additional funding will my program or facility receive? And there's a table. If you go down to that, Margie, we can look at the table A. If you scroll down, yeah. So you can see those are the amounts that people can be expecting to accept. In here, it talks about what can you use supplemental funds for. People do have to be open. They have to agree to remain open through the end of December. And then opportunity zones are defined so that people can understand what they are and where they can find out more about their opportunity zone determination, how the categories were, how they were derived, how those decisions were made. If you want to keep scrolling down, Margie, a little bit further. And then here is the table for the opportunity zone amounts. And as it says, your grant agreement will contain specific notice of approval for an opportunity zone funding. It's included within your new agreement. No one has to apply for it. All those determinations have already been made. So essentially, all that really needs, what they do have to do though, is they have to register for employment-related daycare through the Department of Human Services, and it shows you how to do that. And if they don't want to register as an ERDC provider, then they are giving up the Opportunity Zone funds, but they are still eligible for the supplemental funds. So those are the high-level basics. I would encourage you to read this if you haven't already looked at it. And of course, you could link to this. It will be updated regularly. But this is all in process, just making sure everybody knows that it's all underway. And providers should have been receiving their agreements already, and some are signing them.
Right. It looks like Jerry Wolf has a question. Thank you, Joan.
Hey, so I looked at the FAQ over the weekend, I guess, and what I saw in relationship to opportunity zones was a link to a PowerPoint and then a reference to a certain slide. That map didn't do much for me. Like, I couldn't tell specifically how that affected my area, and it would really be helpful if I had more specific information. And maybe that's been updated in the FAQ since I looked at it, but it wasn't very helpful for me, and I think that it's going to be important for us to connect with our programs, particularly the ones that are not, ERDC, and offer them support. So if they are opportunity zones, so I guess I need a little bit more information for us to be able to do the work we'd like to do.
Well, what
Jerry,
does that look like, Jerry? What do you need?
So I need to know in my SDA what communities are in the opportunity zone. I need to know that, and then from there, once I know that, I'm good. Just I need to know that all of Lincoln County is in the opportunity zone, or all of some parts of Benton County are, but not Corvallis. I need to know that.
I don't know if you want to keep scrolling through, Margie, so we can see what's in here in terms of, so this whole section here is about the opportunity zone. This part in here about, concentrated poverty, racial isolation, the childcare desert. Then the analysis talks about the census tracts, because that's how people are identified, Jerry. It's not by
I got all
town.
that.
Yep.
I totally understand that. I just want to know then there's my map. But I can't tell you from that map how that applies to my SDA. I see it's just it's not detailed enough.
Sure. And I'm happy to ask. And of course, we already let people know if they're in or not in. So, but I am happy to ask if we have more detailed information that we can provide.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. We can then send that forward to everyone once we know. Okay. Are there any other questions specific to the opportunity grants? This supplemental and opportunity. All right. I'm not seeing any. Okay. Then I do want to share some more information. Well, first of all, Joan, was there anything else that you wanted to highlight?
I don't think so, unless there's some other kind of question that comes up. Thank you.
Hey,
Okay.
Joan,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
just a question. I think there was maybe a question around where the funds were coming from, and I'm not sure if that was in the FAQ there, as far as, is this CCDF supplemental or coming from a different?
It's the coronavirus relief funds,
Oh, okay.
CRF, right? And those are time limited funds. They were funds that were provided to the state as a whole. They're not specific to childcare. So the state has been making decisions about how to spend those funds and for what purposes. And so these latest CRF funds were made available to childcare, which I think is really obviously very important. And the funds have to be spent by the end of December, which is why they're very time limited. Which led, of course, to the sizing of the grants associated with the availability of those funds and the applicant pool that had already applied. So
I think as CCRNRs, I mean, I'm sure you hear what Joan's saying there. I just think that's incredibly important to make providers aware of childcare being prioritized for these state level funds that could have gone elsewhere, because that they're being seen as quite critical to reopening in various ways. So I think that's a huge nod in our early childhood direction. So
thanks, John. I think you're picking up the correct thing.
Thanks, John. So, John, not to put you on the spot, but stay there. Just giving a quick update on supplies. Denise was saying she couldn't join today, but we're hoping to have an announcement by the end of the week as far as the next round of supplies. So that would include the details and what you can expect, how the providers would get it. And John, I just wanted to double check. She said that you could maybe speak to that if there was anything more to add.
Yeah, this goes back to the don't schedule a meeting after a holiday. I might have missed the latest stuff that's been going on, but I think what you're saying is pretty accurate and up to date. But I think we're still talking about what Joan mentioned last week, which is essentially designated supply packages based on providers' group size and being able to easily go online and activate that if providers are interested. So there will be an application process, or not an application, but a quick online opportunity for them to go in and select that, and it'll be a care package that is most likely up to 3 months worth of supplies, if not more, based on the size of their program. And so we're talking about PPE supplies, gloves, sanitizer, wipes, so
Face covering.
Yeah, face coverings. Thank you, and also face shields. So if there's a preference between what staff want and are interested in utilizing, so I think it's another incredible opportunity and should be on the way very shortly. But apologies that I don't have an ETA specific. I think there's been a lot of activity in this last week related to the supply ordering process, and governor's office is in the middle of those communications, and we've been moving pretty rapidly.
Thank you, John.
I'd just add really quick, Margie, that also thermometers are on the list of supplies that the state is working to procure. Those are very challenging to find right now, but they're working on that. And I do know that the portal interface, the online interface, was built last week and was being finalized last week. So we are moving forward pretty quickly here. Hopefully we're going to have more information about launching soon.
Great. Thanks so much. All right. So I don't see any questions about that. Let's move on. Hannah, are you there? I thought I saw you earlier. Yeah, we talked about fires and power. You want to update us on Nacroware updates?
Yes. Well, and I'm happy to say my power came back on at 7:47 this morning, so that felt good after about 12 hours. So I hope everyone's being safe. And so Nacroware. So this really came about with us knowing that reporting for where we're at in terms of capacity across the state was going to change as of the new rule revision with Office of Child Care. And so we were in communication with Office of Child Care and their staff about how to best communicate what was happening in childcare. And we sent an email, I believe it was Thursday of last week, to everyone with the Nacroware login, detailing out how we're going to be reporting changes as we're continuing on during this time. The big change is that because programs have the opportunity now to go back to previous capacity, there is an assumption that we will be reporting out their license capacity, except for large centers that are capped at 250 in phase 1. So if regions are at baseline, we will still be reporting out on their emergency childcare capacity. And we're getting that information directly from the OHA website around what counties are in what phase of reopening, and that will determine how we're reporting out capacity. So you will see the dashboard that you all use for information look a little bit differently and have a little bit more nuances depending upon if we're reporting out emergency childcare capacity or if we're reporting out license capacity as well as desired capacity. So it should feel like we're just going back to pre-COVID in terms of using licensed capacity and desired capacity, and just making sure that we are indicating the desired capacity of the program is very key, because their licensed capacity may be 80, but we really know they're only serving 40 children during this time, willing and or serving. And so it's just, we will be sending out a video walking staff through how to just check for that again as well, just have another way of communicating. But I think it's just an FYI for you all to connect with your staff around vacancy checks, and we are no longer needing to use the enroll column anymore. So it should feel back to somewhat of a normal process in terms of license capacity, desired capacity, and then breaking out the age ranges that the program is serving. So that is our update in terms of that. I want to see if there are any questions about it. And it, like I said, the reporting on the dashboard may look a little different later on this week when you guys get in there, because it will look different because programs will be potentially serving more children. So,
Lynette. She's working on audio, it looks like. And Lynette, it looks like you're connected to your phone. You're connected via phone instead of computer, so just. Are there any other questions while we're waiting for Lynette? Okay, I'm not seeing, but it's in the chat box, Hannah.
So Lynette writes, all programs reported on their desired capacity. So we'll be using what we have as our license capacity and then also reporting the desired capacity. So yeah, we'll report on both, but desired capacity will give us the true, what we feel is the true snapshot of how many children are actually being served by programs, since we know not all of them are choosing to serve their license capacity due to staffing issues or number of classrooms, whatever it may be. So yes, so desired capacity is key.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions?
This is Lynette. Sorry, I lost my audio, but I got the answer. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm glad you got your audio back. Okay, and then I'll just follow that up with a quick Find Childcare Oregon database, which you all know is going to be our new database. There have been several groups working with Sherry Friedman and the TRI team on this transition. We were 4 states were ahead of us, so it's really an update on the timeline. 4 states were ahead of us as far as transitioning their data from NACRAWare to the current work-life systems, which we are referring to as Find Childcare Oregon. So we're expecting that we're going to be transitioning a little bit later than what was planned. We did expect we'd transition as of actually this week. And Sherry's going to get the timeline, the corrected timeline today. She's in a meeting right now with Work-Life Systems to get that information. On our end, we've really been able to move forward with things such as what is it we want to capture in all the client fields. So they've met with 211 and have gone over all of that and sent what is desired in that as well. And then also working with the Office of Child Care and CRIS and making sure that the CRIS and Work-Life Systems talk to each other. So that's been a work in progress as well. So we are moving forward. We'll get an update on the timelines, and thank you to all of you who are participating and all of your staff who are participating in this transition. It's very much appreciated. Okay, any questions? All right. And then just one more quick update just to make sure everyone got it and everyone heard it and there's no questions, that we will be looking at the work plan and doing a plan, do, study, act process with that, and as far as how it's working, what we want to keep, what we want to change. And we did get 3 CCRR directors to help with that. So you'll be getting an invite to, or probably a doodle poll first. And we expect it's only going to be a few meetings to make those changes. And that the work plan for year 2 will be due December 4th. And then that does remind me, Jennifer, I will be reaching out to you to get someone from DHS to assist with that as well. So, okay. And then there's one more thing that wasn't on the list, and it's mainly because I don't have all of the steps yet, but I know some of you have been asking about the getting guidelines printed and able to send to providers. We are able to do that, and I'm working with Jason Sloan right now to get those steps together as far as how you can do that. But it's looking like what would happen is we would get the number from you, the number that you need, and get those shipped to you so you can send to providers. So we'll follow up this meeting with those details. But I wanted to let you know that we were working on it. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so let's go ahead and move to Andy, Dana, and John to talk more about Preschool Promise. So, John, can I give you the screen?
Sure. I think we can always put up the sample job descriptions. I will let everyone know that we just forwarded the sample quality improvement specialist preschool promise position description and a sample coach position description to all of you that are a part of these meetings. And so feel free to pull those up yourselves as you're looking. And I don't know that that walking through the documents is necessarily the best way to introduce this discussion, but I do know that the CCRR Directors Coalition was asking, for some clarity on and the differences between the quality improvement specialist and coach positions, and so that's what we're prepared to just have a dialogue with everyone about. And Andy, I don't know if you want to cue it up, or Dana, both are on.
I can do that. This is Andy. So I'm putting in the chat box now a resource that I wanted to make sure everybody had and can bookmark, which may be helpful in this conversation. It's one that we've used a lot in thinking about technical assistance and how we can move into a system that it can be supportive to all of our Preschool Promise grantees. And I think the way that I would frame up the conversation from my perspective is that this is going to be a learning experience for all of us this first year. And if we think about it in terms of implementation science, we've done a lot of exploration around TA for our Preschool Promise folks. We know that coaching is been shown study after study to be the most impactful method of technical assistance. But we also know that not all of our programs may necessarily be really ready for that coaching yet. And so we also want to look at what you'll see in the glossary is called consultation. And as we go through this year, we know that some things are going to feel a little messy, for lack of a better word. I think that we're going to be learning together. And then at the end of the year, we're also going to be able to reflect back at this initial implementation and see where some course corrections may be. And one of those parts that's probably going to feel a little messy in all regions, and in some regions maybe less so, and some regions maybe a little bit more so, is how we navigate the two roles, the coach and the specialist. And so one way that I have found has been helpful in my thinking to think about them as separate is the specialist role is really the consultation. So it's more short-term, singly focused. The consultation may be around the learning environment and how do we identify what would improve the science area. And the coaching is more of that relationship-based, long-term, focusing on the professional competencies of the coachee. That coach's role is to walk hand in hand and facilitate the coachee's learning of their own and to guide that learning, not necessarily to provide the answers. And the consultation might be more around providing the answers and those pieces. I do know in some areas that they're going to be the same person. That's just the reality of how the FTEs work out, and we understand that. And I think that in those cases, the thing for us all to keep in mind is how do we find the person who can really fit the coaching piece first, and then know when to shift into the consultation. So we're looking for some highly skilled, knowledgeable folks that can downshift from coaching into consultation. Coaching is considered one of the more intensive pieces of technical support, and consultation is a little bit of a lighter touch, is another way to think about that. So that would just be my way of framing up the conversation, is knowing that we're going to be learning a lot this year. We're going to be learning a lot about how to identify when consultation is the best tool to pull out of that toolbox or when it's coaching. We're going to be learning a lot about how individuals can shift themselves back and forth between consultation and coaching. And we're going to be learning a lot around specific coaching goals and how to really build in competency-based, practice-based coaching, relationship-based coaching, and how do we use consultation to complement trainings.
I just want to continue talking through that a little bit, and I really think that those distinctions are great, and that you've been able to highlight that for everyone, Andy. And I'm just thinking about, we mentioned this before, but I think in light of all the information that you all are taking in each week, it bears mentioning again. If we had we've been prioritizing Focused Childcare Network activity and quality improvement specialists work with providers, and really intensively have hit that hard in the last couple of years. But I think if our system was fully funded previous to where we're at now, we would have had so much Focused Childcare Network activity occurring that we probably wouldn't have Preschool Promise quality improvement specialists in this mix right now, because we're actually bringing providers into a place with public funding where the foundation of what they have to do the work that we're asking them to do may not be at a level that they can just slide right into this coaching opportunity that comes with public funding, and really is that intensive level of sort of taking the data and moving towards child outcomes and teacher outcomes that are really at a higher level than what we've expected quality improvement specialists to provide in the past. But you need that quality improvement specialist with many of your providers that are getting funded in Preschool Promise, because they haven't entered that realm yet, where they're interacting with the state, where they have, some of them have not even, taken their Spark journey at this point. There's a lot of foundational aspects that really need to be supported right now on the quality improvement specialist side. And it's up to you and your team to figure out how those things complement each other, and how the coach and the quality improvement specialists are really working together and differentiating their roles to figure out which providers need what level and at what time, and when the right time is for that coach to start to insert in and to help set those really more individualized, more intensive goals. And so I think the two opportunities, whether you've got multiple, some regions have multiple quality improvement specialists in this Preschool Promise funding that you're receiving, and multiple coach, like 1.75 FTE, and some of you have 0.25 of each, and you're trying to figure out how to make those things mesh. And so we we can work closely with each region as we start to develop that. But I think the point that is really important that Andy made to stress is that you hire for that highest level individual in this coaching role, because what we're really wanting to see is someone who has the skill set to walk into any environment and help them set meaningful goals to create outcomes and to better serve children and families in preschool promise programs. And so entering into a family childcare versus entering into a Head Start or a school district, the systems level savviness that a coach needs to have to walk through all those doors may be a little bit different than what our quality improvement specialists currently have. Now, some of them have worked with school districts, and some of your specialists that you currently have done that work, and they do it great. But not every person has that level of I would say that your supervisors that you have in your programs and the directors that you have in your programs, that you guys are the ones who can sort of easily walk through all those doorways and sit at the table and be a partner and a thought partner and help people see the needs in the community and work with all of those different levels at different times. And I think that coach needs to have similar qualities in their background and their capabilities to be able to support all of those different environments. And so I know that probably the directors had some specific questions that were sort of coming up for you guys to kind of bring this forward as a coalition kind of request. So I'd like to actually, understand a little bit more what you guys have been sort of grappling with. And also, I just want to put out there that we want to understand how you feel those roles differentiate in your regions, because you know what the lay of the land is. What providers have been now moved towards contract and preschool promise, and how do you see those roles potentially different and supportive of each other? So I think that's, there's the nuances between sort of what we've put on paper and what exists professionally in your communities, and then also that's my mom. Hold on. Oh, no, just kidding. I don't know whose phone that was. I literally don't know whose phone that was. So anyway, I can derail myself. I think the good news is that if you're hiring for those high-level positions too, we're also going to have mentor coaches in this system to support the coach role and really embed competency-based, development in and across our state as they're supporting preschool promise programs. So as they get into this sort of new role in Oregon, there is a support system that is going to help them really achieve the goals that we're hoping to achieve to move towards the highest levels of quality in preschool promise across the state. And so I think the idea that you've got these two positions, they may seem similar, but I don't see the coach leading any general, training opportunities or doing anything other than really intensive, individualized supports in programs to help them achieve the standards that are in preschool promise. And there's a lot of providers that aren't going to be quite ready for that upon entry. And that's where that quality improvement specialist is really the support system for those folks. So a lot of words. What were the questions behind the need for this to be on the agenda? Hearing none,
I'm not seeing any.
Go out and get. Okay, thanks.
I was actually waiting for Karen Hankemeyer to raise her hand. Go ahead, Karen.
Well, I wasn't part of the conversation to really dig in deep fully at the Directors Coalition, but I think some of the aspects that Andy went over and a better understanding of a little bit of our own flexibility and how we make this position what it is, and knowing that whatever it is, this coach is that preschool promise expert, right? And that you know, for example, in our area, we need somebody that's above and beyond, knows QRS, right, and understands that, but then really is that point person in the community for preschool promise. So that person in our feeling here would be a part of leadership, right? So what I'm hearing is we are flexible in how we staff this so it best meets our community needs, and that has helped. That's my perspective, and I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in from the Directors Coalition.
I guess this is Joan. I'd like to hear more about what you think flexibility means. So when you say, I think we all need to be really specific with each other, because these are actually really specific roles for the Preschool Promise program. You know, there's two roles for a reason. It's these two roles for a reason. It's these position descriptions for a reason. So I just want us to be really clear on what the flexibility part is that we're referring to, so we don't get ourselves confused about what that means.
Well, I guess from what I'm feeling is the coach is the bottom line, right? So we can hire a coach, but that's how am I supposed to say this? So they can be mixed, right? If we have someone with the higher skills, they can also have the understanding of QRIS and the QIS position. So if we have a 0.25 and a 0.25, that can be combined to a 0.5, but it has to be at that higher level of a coach.
Yeah. I think that's an accurate interpretation. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, Karen, the only thing I would add to that and thinking about it is that in the coaching is going to really have conversations that are within Preschool Promise, but sometimes even bigger than Preschool Promise. You know, like Preschool Promise is not a unique snowflake in the world of high quality early learning. And so they will need to know the intricacies of Preschool Promise. But I think eventually what I hope is happening is that when that coach is working with the teacher or the program director or the program owner, you know, that they're having deeper conversations that are not limited by this is what Preschool Promise says we need to do, but really going in deep around those best practices and those competencies. And I think in turn that will raise the professional level of the entire field within Preschool Promise. So I don't want folks to feel that coaches are limited just to their knowledge of Preschool Promise, but that we're really hoping that these folks who come in are really knowledgeable in early learning and best practices and those competencies within that, and staying up to date on theory, and all that will inform into Preschool Promise.
I see a finger raised by Jerry. Now 2 fingers.
So as you all were describing this, the thing that I think I'm hanging on to with related to the coaches, we've never done anything quite like that before. So not that we haven't worked one-on-one with people, but I think this is a different model that is way more intense than we've ever done before. So while I think we're all kind of struggling with, yes, my people work one-on-one with people and we have these intense conversations, I think from what I'm hearing from you all, this is just going to be at a kicked up level that we just haven't experienced before. And so that's how I'm going to think about it. So there's a lot of information that you gave us today that is really helpful for me as I think about, you know, who the person is. I think thinking about my specialist as being the one that's doing the foundational work, with those programs, but my coach is really being that one person who's doing some real intense work with providers, and that you all are going to provide that mentor coach that is going to help us step up our game. So thank you for that. I think I got it. It may not last for I might not think I have it, tomorrow, but right now I think I have it.
That's great. And I so appreciate you saying that, because when I think about this upcoming year, I think there's going to be a lot of moments where we're like, I think we got it. And then the next day we're like, no, I don't think I got it. That's going to be part of this parallel learning experience under this initial implementation. And it's going to be just really important for us to continue to ask those clarifying questions and both ways at that full transparency of, I think I got it, but now I'm wondering if maybe I don't.
Okay, it looks like Toby, do you have a question?
I just kind of sort of question. We have, I know in a lot of regions, there's going to be Head Starts that have preschool promise. And it says in the preschool promise manual that they can also hire outside people to help with that. How do we fit in? How does our QIS and coach fit in when most of the Head Starts have like ed managers and those certified in class to support them? How's that going to work? Because I think it's going to be hard to get into some of those areas if they have their own staff already supporting those programs.
Sure, and that's a really great question, Toby. I appreciate that, because we do have in the OPK model, there are coaches. That's a Head Start performance standard that was enacted several years ago. When I think about that, I think about two things. I think about how does that knowledge, actually I think about three things. How does that knowledge really build into how a CCRNR may prioritize? We know there aren't going to be in this initial year enough coaches and enough quality specialists for everybody to have the dosage that we think we would like them to have for each preschool promise grantee. So how do we look at some of these programs that may have access to coaching in other ways and think about that in prioritization of building those relationships with the preschool promise grantees? Then I also think about how this is an avenue for more relationship building between the CCRNRs and those Head Start OPKs. Yes, they have coaches. It doesn't mean that they don't, that those coaches can't be part of the network, that those coaches can't be part of those ongoing conversations. Because again, Preschool Promise is not a unique a butterfly, and Head Start is not a unique butterfly. Each of those programs are implementing high quality early learning, and we have baseline and we have theories and we have best practices to define that. So then how can this be an opportunity to say we have folks doing the same work? How can we then have a peer support together around that? And I guess I really did only have two, because now I can't remember what I said the third was going to be, but it'll come back, I promise, at some point today.
Well, and I will chime in until Andy comes up with the third. But I think that this is, the real key for me is that these coach positions, and to some degree quality improvement specialists, are elevating their partnership interactions in this environment. We're really talking about mixed delivery here. So when we've got Head Starts and school districts and some programs that potentially our quality improvement specialists have not done a ton of work with, this is taking that lead, learn, excel component around working with instructional leaders sort of to the next level, because those education specialists, those coaches in those Head Start programs, whatever is in the school district that exists, that is sort of within their structure, these folks are creating those partnerships. And there doesn't let's just take a Head Start, for instance. Just because they have a coach does not mean that our coach isn't going to add value to that situation, and they can partner together, sort of work on strategies together that internal coach might be implementing, and then revisit it and see how it went with those preschool promise classrooms. And so I think sometimes, a Head Start might say, "We've got this, you go do what you do best somewhere else." And not that that would be the way that they frame it, but they know their performance standards. They know how they're going to take their performance standards and utilize them to create preschool promise environments that are successful. But I think that it's creating that relationship where they see your coach as an added value. And I guarantee you that the coaches in the Head Start system get mobilized to have to do other stuff, and they don't get to coach as often as they want to. So when your coach is continually coming back to say, hey, how can I support? And their coach is actually in the numbers in a classroom, they need you. So just be aware of some of those nuances too.
Thanks, John. We do have some questions, Christine and then Karen Hinkemeyer, and then I do want to circle back to have a conversation on Lynette's question in the chat, which is, has there been any thoughts on how the coach will do that work during COVID? So why don't we start with Christine, then Karen, and then we'll go back to that. Christine, do you have audio? We're not hearing you. Oh, there you are, but it's very quiet.
Okay, sorry. I think my headphones I need to replace. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thank you.
I think what we've been talking a lot about over the past, at least year or two now, we've been sort of trying to transition some of our quality improvement specialists into some of this coaching role. So I think my understanding was that was a lot of the intent of Lead, Learn, Excel. And I'm not saying we're quite there yet, because we're not, but we certainly started that transition. And so I guess I'm just trying to figure out how this fits into the overall structure of CCRR. So I have other quality improvement specialists under that title. And so I guess, and maybe this is more of an individual conversation, but as I think about language needs, for instance, and things like that, it does feel like it is the same person. And I completely, thank you so much for the clarification, Andy, on like the difference between a coach. I understand that piece. But I also think a good coach starts with wherever that teacher or director, whoever is. And so if we're having somebody who comes in at that very base level and keeps that relationship, and then hopefully can bring them all the way to that child outcome level, right, over time. I understand that doesn't happen overnight, and I understand that that person has to have the skills to be able to do that. Is that the correct thinking? I guess I'm just trying to confirm that, or tell me I'm wrong.
Andy,
ahead,
are you
John.
getting ready to speak?
Well, John looked like he was having some really deep thoughts. I'll say my piece, and then I'll let John say something even smarter, I'm sure. I think, Christine, I think you're on the right track. I don't think that I'm the one who can really speak towards like the overall vision for the CCRNRs, but I do see that that part of coaching is that initial establishing of what do they need, and that is very much like the consultation, and then the coaching is taking it that step further and building it into a more intensive purpose and a longer purpose usually as well. So I think that's where we start to see how there are different tools that can be used by the same person. Our intent was to build capacity around both the specialists and the coach, and maybe years in the future we find that the coach is the only role we need. That may be something we learn this year as some of those FTEs are combined. But in working in the system that we have now, with the funding that we have now, our feeling was the way we can help support as many people as possible would be to have some folks who are focused strictly on consultation and maybe having a larger caseload than folks who are focused strictly on coaching. However, best laid plans a year ago look very different today, and that is the beauty of the work we do, is we constantly get to shift and learn from our experiences. So I think, Christine, you are on track, and there's still a lot to dig in and think about around that too.
Yeah, and
Thanks, Andy. John?
Thanks, Margie. I didn't actually have anything to say, but since Andy kind of wanted me to say something smart, I'll shoot for the stars. The interesting part about what Christine's bringing up is that there are some individualized conversations we're going to have within regions, because part of what you're grappling with is thinking about some of your existing people and their sort of connections to providers already, their current relationships and skill set, and what they've helped drive providers towards achieving. And I think, deciding how they might fit into a coach role versus a quality improvement specialist role, or how those FTE might combine, I think is considerations to continue to talk through. But I think the key is that we don't want to dilute the coach role into a quality improvement specialist role. So we don't want to have that person doing sort of all this other general practice, quality improvement work, when really they should be intensively walking alongside those providers, individually setting goals and analyzing data around how children are doing, analyzing data around how teachers are doing in relationship to the children, being able to really set goals around that and help those instructional leaders in each of those programs really understand how to move and maneuver their system to higher levels of quality. And so I think the coach role, even though our quality improvement specialists have been, and I would imagine some of them are deep into that level of service to providers and programs, but I think a lot of our quality improvement specialists have just started to dabble in that stuff. Like, that wasn't really how they came into the system, they're thinking about, I'm working with teachers. Like, coaches are working with systems. They're working with the entire program and everything about it. And I get it, family childcare, the whole system's all in one, wrapped up all in one person sometimes, and so it looks a little different. But I think that coach role, we really want to go deeper, and I think that quality improvement specialists, many of them are high level thinkers and are the ones that might actually move right into those positions as coaches, because they've been doing this work and have been moving much closer to coaching than consultation. But I also think we're going to have some systems put into place where we're challenging our people to be certified as coaches. And I think that may be coming. I don't know if that's still on the list, Andy, but so the coaches are kind of moving down a path where we're going to start to see a separation in duties, but it looks and feels similar at this point. But so just thoughts there. But I think that as you guys start to dive into recruitment around this, we're going to have many more conversations individually with regions, because you're going to either see that you have internal candidates, and what does that look like in your own programs, and you may have language needs of providers and skill sets that you aren't recruiting for outside of the people that are currently in your program because they're sort of the best fit. All those things are going to be considerations that we have to dive deep into. But I do appreciate Joan's comments about ensuring that when we're thinking about flexibility, that we really define what that is in terms of what the FTE is that you have and what we're trying to achieve, and that we don't sort of slip into everybody does all of these things and we already do coaching, because this is a little deeper than we've gotten before. So that wasn't
Thank you,
the
John.
smart thing Andy wanted me to say, but it was a thing, and I did say it.
And I just want to quickly add, and then I'd like to, I want to go back to Lynette as soon as possible. Shannon, do you have a question specific to what we're talking about right now? Because we want to capture that before we go into another topic.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
So my question is, so most of our QISs have gone through the Lead Learn Excel. I'm planning on trying to move staff into the preschool promise positions that I think are qualified. They've gone through, but what if we're rehiring new people? They haven't gone through it. Is there going to be additional types of training for these positions ongoing through the state? I just wanted to make sure
Yes.
that that's the case.
Yeah, there will be, we're currently working on setting up a system so that we have sustainability around the Lead, Learn, Excel trainings. And there'll also be some additional trainings that will be available when folks are in these positions and we have some better data on the lay of the land and what trainings would be most helpful. So yeah.
And is there a way that additional staff could attend? I'm just looking for longevity and replacement in case people do leave, but I have staff that have been also taking this training.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, our plan A is always that people never leave their jobs and stay forever and ever. But in case we have to go to plan B, we are looking towards sustainability around Lead, Learn, Excel, and then how do we have ongoing Lead, Learn, Excel trainings to both support capacity building and the unfortunate turnover that happens when people win the lottery and decide to not work anymore.
Or they worked in Washington County and all went to the state, but no big deal.
Maybe. Karen, I know you had a question too. Is that one that's related? And because I do want to talk to Lynette's question around virtual coaching, basically.
Yeah, I do have two questions. One, it would really be great for just me and myself to be able to schedule a meeting with you guys this week so that when I start to recruit, I'm recruiting in an approved way for the positions that I need. And then the second thing is tracking child outcomes. I'd like to have a conversation in which how are we going to do that and in what database will we be doing that?
That is a fantastic question, Karen, and one of the things that in Preschool Promise that we are working on, and then really defining, again, being very specific when we say tracking child outcomes, defining what that means. And I think for the purposes of coaching and consultation, it may just be working with that provider and having them bring the data and having that data dialogue. I don't think that we are looking at CCRNRs as being a data hub for all child outcomes. So I just want to snip that in the bud and not have folks worrying about that. Obviously, at our level with the providers in their monthly and quarterly reports, we do ask that question, but that will come up to our level. But I think for coaching and for consultation, it's going to be part of that individualized work if that is within the work plan and the coaching goals of that relationship is looking at child outcomes as well. So hopefully that's a little bit of clarity that both answers the question. And I saw Jerry clapping, so I'm just going to take that as a win and slowly fade away. Go out while you're on top.
Margie, you're talking.
Margie, I can't hear you.
Sorry. I forgot I was muted. Thank you for catching that. It looks like Heather has a couple of questions, and then let's go ahead and move to Lynette's question. So Andy, we can follow that up. So go ahead, Heather.
Okay, so I was wondering, Hubs used to hold a monitoring piece. What does that look like as far as in relationship to coaching and things like that? Is there where does that cross over? Is it, I guess, going to maybe her last response? So you're going to be asking them to do all the reporting out as a preschool promise program. I just didn't know where there's a coaching monitoring. There's nothing that's crossing right there. Besides maybe some.
Yeah, I would say that within the reporting that you guys will do, there'll be some questions around coaching, but the grantees will do the reporting straight to the ELD. It's a direct contract now, not a subcontract, so that's where that hub role is going to look very different now. That the ELD is really absorbing that hub role, and then any reporting around coaching will go through your usual, I think in the amendment it says monthly, quarterly, but John and Margie, please correct me if I'm not as up to date on the reporting that you guys normally do, but there will probably be some added questions around those deliverables of the coaching.
Okay, so do you think there might be visits and things like that that are coming from the state for monitoring, or is it just going to be through reporting?
That would be a Margie question.
Okay.
Yeah, Heather, when we can be released back into
the
public,
wild.
we would definitely have site visits, and we do need to do monitoring, and our monitoring would include that as well. However, until then, we'll be working out a more virtual type of monitoring. But yes, there will be monitoring to help support this, deliverable, this expectation.
And then I think my second question goes to, we've had a grant for some time working with Preschool Promise programs and our pre-K network. And so I think in an earlier conversation several weeks ago, we talked about that there was going to be some really clear communication from the state to the Preschool Promise programs about their participation in these cohorts and networks. I think sometimes, especially with schools, it's extremely helpful that they understand that there is an understanding of the intensive nature of this work. Again, leveling up from where we've been working with them to what you're looking at now. So are those conversations of clarity coming as well, or have they already been had?
Yeah, so expectations around working with the hubs and working with the CCRNRs is part of the grant manual, and that information has been provided to them ahead of time, that this is part of what they're agreeing to. And then as we as contracts are executed and finalized, and we move into more of an onboarding phase, then they'll be emphasized again as well at that time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Heather.
This is Dana. And Heather, you bring up a great point. I know here at the ELD right now, like, I'm getting calls. Like, people want to be able to go ahead and talk about like their requirements and how do we do that. So I think we have added that information in the grant manual. And I think as we move forward to like a fully executed contract, we'll be kind of, redirecting a lot of our grantees to you all. And I think there's going to be a lot of shifting and who goes where and when do they call what or who. I think the other side of it is also with their grants and ops team is also like they're providing the technical assistance on their contractual grant requirements. So I foresee in the future, not right now, it's like, okay, how do those collide? Because I think there's going to be almost like a referral, like, hey, I'm getting a lot of calls from Dana about like her reports, ELD, someone should probably contact her, or even with them, I'm getting calls about, how to do assessments and redirecting. So I think that's another, how I see it, like in just what happened in the first implementation, I think there's going to be some back and forth with the different resources that our grantees have available. So thank you.
Thanks, Dana. So shall we go ahead and talk about the virtual coaching or how to go through this during COVID-19?
Sure. I mean, Lynette, did you want to add to the question that you put in the chat box?
I just wanted to have a discussion about what it's going to look like, and because if we have that now, that may impact how we're seeing the work and going forward and who we're hiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good question, and obviously a hot topic all around the country, and a lot of the conversations that I've been able and honored to join in around this. And I think what it comes down to is the how may be changing. There's just like this meeting, and the how we meet has shifted for the time being, but the what of the conversations is not. And so it's still having conversations. Tell me about your program. Tell me about your professional goals, you know, sitting down and looking at data. But obviously, we prefer that those conversations include a site visit, but that's just not going to be possible for right now. Like Margie said, you know, even the ELD is not released out to go do site visits at this point. And so I think what it looks like is some creativity. It looks like really leaning in on your virtual platforms to the best of the ability and the availability of both the grantee and the CCRNRs. You know, everybody, I would just remind you all that all the QISs going through Lead, Learn, Excel have access to Coaching Companion, which really was designed to be a distance coaching tool and to be a tool that's helpful if a coach cannot, because of geography mostly, reach every teacher or program. And so that's a tool that can be helpful because not only can you exchange resources and send videos along, but it's also a place where they can set a coaching plan and goals and track it there, so it's easily accessible. It doesn't have to be on paper. And there is still a lot that can be done. In fact, research shows that coaching that utilizes video is more impactful than coaching that doesn't. And so I think in some ways, this is giving us an opportunity to build it back better and being able to lean into some of these things that maybe we haven't before. Not all providers are comfortable with the videoing, but maybe this will give them a taste of it where they can become more comfortable because it has, and then be able to see those results again. So those are some of our initial thoughts and I think also how OPKs are addressing it as well. But you know, the baseline is that until at least our licensors are allowed to go back out and into programs freely, we're not going to be sending out additional folks into programs during this time. So how are we connecting virtually, I think is really something that each of you will be, I'm sure, thinking about and already thinking about in the work, and we are here to support. So those are just my initial thoughts. I wish there was a, you know, like with everything right now, I wish there was a black and white answer. I wish there could be like just this one thing that we've all been keeping in our back pockets for when the pandemic comes. But we're finding our way through it. And so using those virtual platforms, using Coaching Companion, and really remembering that the conversations are around quality and those interactions and how are we still supporting really great professional development, really great early learning, and knowing that some of the mechanics of how we implement that right now look different than they did 8 months ago, but that there's still quality within there. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Andy and Lynette. And also just a note about that, I think everyone is really keyed into our future. And that is, going back to what Christine was asking as far as our infrastructure and thinking about our staff and their qualifications. Christine, I think you were part of that national group. We were getting TA on specific goals that we had, and it was about qualifications for our staff, the quality improvement specialists, and other CCRNR staff, and just consistently ensuring that they had the skill set to be able to do that more intensive relationship-based professional development with providers. So yes, we are definitely moving in that direction and providing the resources as we've been going to make sure that happens. And then with that said, thinking about where we are now in our world and knowing that virtual connections are probably going to be kind of the norm and an option. And so being able to have the skill set and the platforms and the understanding and how people can connect, build rapport, have relationships, support quality, and provide resources virtually is something that I think we're all going to be doing and needing as we go. So another resource that we want to make sure all of you have that you can also share with your staff and with providers. So I did want to call out Ronnie Pham. You have something in the chat box chat box, and I just think this might be a good opportunity for you to share your new position and how you are our liaison and link to the Office of Child Care and licensing work. That would be so great.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thanks, Ronnie.
Okay, that's great. Actually, I don't really have so much of a new position as I'm in a new, mostly in a new unit. So I'm in the Office of Child Care, and I just put in the chat box that the licensing specialists are continuing to do licensing visits. They're continuing to do monitoring visits. And what's really kind of wild is that they use a number of tools. They have like 4 options to work with the provider through a monitoring visit. And they're actually coming out with non-compliances from a virtual visit. It's like they have the person kind of show them around the room, and they see a baby swaddled or sleeping with blankets and what have you, and then they're talking about that and through the process as well. So the monitoring visits are working remotely well. They're getting a lot of technical assistance, and it's including the new guidelines as well. They're able to do still complaint visits, licensing, monitoring, and we do have one group that is still going out, so that they are going out on certain issues or complaints or what have you throughout the process. So anyway, I just wanted to share that there's multiple ways of doing that. I mean, I think if a teacher had the opportunity to show off their environment, especially while it has less kids in it and it's less destroyed, they might like to be able to show that off as well. And so there's multiple tools that the licensing specialists are able to use in this process, and it's working. Okay, Ronnie out.
Thank you, Ronnie. And that may be something we could have in this meeting at some point, have a licensing specialist come and maybe talk through how they're doing it, just so everyone has, and you may already have that awareness as you've all been meeting with licensing specialists on a regular basis, but it's just a thought for something we can talk about in the future. All right, any other questions related to Preschool Promise and the positions and where we are? I hope this was helpful. I hope you were able to get some answers, you know, the Directors Coalition and the questions. Okay, I see Jerry raising her hand. Thank you, Jerry.
So I guess it's that question about contract amendments, if we have any idea about timeline, because that's going to impact how fast we get these positions filled.
Yes, and Sandy is not on this, but that's moving forward. I believe everything is at ODE at this point. Is that correct, John? Do you know? We're pretty close to getting those out.
Yeah, mid last week, I think it was headed towards ODE from our side of our contracts department, and so how fast that's going to move, though, I don't have an estimate without a little bit more info from Sandy on where she thinks our ODE procurement will be within this. It's the amendments are adding in, you know, some new stuff, so it may take a little bit of a different review from our Department of Justice side of things, but I'm hoping, since they're grants, those usually move through DOJ pretty fast, or at least they have a tendency to. So if we can get an update on timing, I will loop back around and let you all know. Yeah, and we'll try and give you more information as soon as we can get it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, John, you want to talk a little bit about the communications to providers regarding different areas of the state and FIRES?
Yeah, this is an emergent item, folks. Sorry to hijack the agenda, but I pretty much want to blame it on Shannon, because she does that really good. Each time we have one of these meetings, she comes up with something good, and it's actually timely and important. And in this case, it's no different. I think in various regions throughout the state, we're having families evacuated out of their homes and sent to Red Cross evacuation centers, and folks trying to get out and head one direction, but because of the fires, they have to head a different direction. And Shannon's question to me was, and I think was something that she was thinking about doing, was having her staff contact providers in some of those communities just to see if they're okay, essentially, as the first sort of question, like how are they doing? Have they had to evacuate? And what does it mean for them and their childcare? Are they most likely closed? Those kinds of things. Just getting a little bit of information, but also offering emotional support and understanding the situation is affecting some people greatly. I think there's areas and regions where towns are being decimated, and so this is a big deal. But I think as CCRNRs and our partners here, 211 also, and potentially others, as you're hearing what this devastation is causing childcare providers, I think it would be good for us to know. I mean, you're not able to necessarily jump right in and offer them tangible resources and supports, but I do know our state mobilizes around these things, and there may be resources that can be offered at some point at the state level. And I just think knowing what providers are going through can advise us. So if you do have staff capacity to do some connecting with providers, it would be great. It's not a mandatory thing, but I just think Shannon was proactively thinking about, what can they do and how might they support. And so Shannon, feel free to chime in.
Well, I know, Nancy, I think you had to deal with this a year or two ago, and if you could help figure out if any questions you asked or what some of the things that you experienced, because I think Mill City here's got 100 homes plus lost, and Silverton is being evacuated, and Staten and Sublimity are on level 2. So they're all coming this way, but I just wanted to get your experience and what you did.
All right, couldn't get my sound on. Sadly, I'm not going to be much help, Shannon, because during that time 2 years ago, our level 2 evacuation hit the same day that I brought my daughter home from the hospital after her accident. So I wasn't working. But interestingly, one of the issues we had was that the child care center in the city of Morrow was evacuated. They were level 3, and they stayed that way for, I don't know, over a week. Well, actually 2 weeks. The the certified family child care program in that community wanted to reopen during an evacuation. So I think helping providers to understand that, yes, they want to support whether it be firefighters, farmers, emergency personnel, whatever, trying to operate in an evacuation zone is just not the thing to do. But yeah, as far as what staff did or what we were doing, I wasn't working. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Thank you, Nan. That was helpful, just what you gave. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. So there were a lot of conversations with them from licensors and staff.
Yeah, I think that's a whole other nuance of providers wanting to mobilize to help first responders, just like they've been doing in the pandemic. But this won't work if they're in that zone and they're asked to evacuate. So helping them troubleshoot could be a significant support from CCRNRs and, of course, licensing.
Well, and I'm wondering if it would be helpful from the Office of Child Care to have parameters around the other evacuation levels. Like level 2, you need to be ready to go. If you're operating childcare, ready to go means that you probably need to have the ability to grab all of those kids and get in a car and go. So I think it would be really helpful if there were some parameters around that for childcare providers.
Thank you, Nancy. And I would imagine Ronnie is going to be able to also share that information with licensing. So that was great. And then Carrie, did you want to share what you just put in the chat box?
Yes. At 211, not my team, but another team at 211 is on a lot of the emergency calls right now, and we're getting updated on different evacuation zones and some communication around shelter and where people can go. You're right about, like, some people are thinking that they need to go to one area because in the past that's where they've been told to evacuate to, but then like at the last minute it's changing and people are being told to go to different areas. So it's really hard to keep up with right now. One of our managers just said that like all night long they were up trying to keep track of like what to add to the database to keep it up to date and accurate. So it's really complicated right now, but they are trying to keep it updated so people can call 211 to get information about the evacuation zones. And it's happening really fast and furious right now.
Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, the way the wind's blowing, it's hard to know where the fires are going to end up. Taya is asking if there's a centralized website to see where evacuation is happening. I don't know that. Does anyone have that information? John, it looks like you're going to talk.
Well, unless Carrie has better information, but I'm seeing OPB has kind of a live update thing going, but there may be something better.
I'll check with our emergency manager person and see if I can get the website that they're using too. Just a minute.
I think it's largely going to be county by county. We have a lot going on here in Lane County right now. So we have like level 2, like 5 miles east of where I live, when I live like in town in Springfield. So there's a lot going on really close by, but the closest I can find is our county. So I'm going to keep that updated on our Facebook page, and it's changing really rapidly right now. I think it might be close in for a lot of you like that too, but the county government page is like updating probably every 15 minutes or so right now here.
And it looks like Hannah, Cheryl, and Lauren have all put in websites to check. So that's great. Okay.
Well,
all right.
The opportunity just to bring up an emergent and serious issue, and I appreciate anything that you guys are doing as you're interacting with providers. And if we hear any more of how Office of Child Care is trying to support in your regions, we can forward information to you too there. So thanks, folks.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, thanks, John and Shannon, for bringing that up. It's really important. I'm glad we have these touch points. We really only have one more thing on the agenda. There is a slight change. We took off the Preschool Promise profile because that is in a rough draft right now, not quite ready to go forward. So we'll be moving that forward soon. And so just want to give you an FYI on something we're doing internally, and we'll be moving forward for parents to look at and provide guidance, and so that we can finish this up. But Cass Furter, who's our family engagement coordinator, and myself, Ann Morrison, and Lindsay Free, as she is also on this committee, and also Katie Shergan, who is part of the communications team. The 5 of us are working on a document that's for parents to give them information on the guidelines and what to look for. What we're doing is creating what we call an at-a-glance document. So it's going to be kind of a snapshot of what they can look at it incorporates, just a quick overview of the guidelines, also what to expect when they drop off and pick up, also what they can expect in activities during the day, where, if they see a provider maybe not following the guidelines, how they may be able to talk to them about it. So it's just going to kind of be snippets, easy to absorb. So we're in the process now of getting kind of that rough draft going. We want to take it in front of some parents and say, are we on the right track? Is this making sense? And then we'll get their feedback, make the changes. We'll take it to our leadership team. They'll provide feedback. And then we're going to take it to a wider group of parents and different languages and get more feedback and hope to have it ready by the end of this month. So Cass, I want to make sure, could you share any more information I may have left off, or a little more details on the parent connection? Because she's been really busy with that piece of it, along with the content.
Well, thank you for the plug. It is a holiday weekend that we just came off of, and now we've got this fire issue that is really affecting a lot of people. So we did have really good intentions, and I'm hoping that even if just a handful of parents would be available to have this initial conversation. I worked with some of the Carmen Ellis and I strategized a little bit, and I reached out to 211, Focus Child Networks, got contacted, Early Learning Hubs, and the OPEC hubs that do parent ed also did. And Carrie and I went back and forth with emails last week, and so she kind of got the drill about maybe some families that might be most interested in the programs that we're going to be offering and available and that people would be using. So there will be another opportunity. So it's tonight and then tomorrow at noon for this first part. And then we will have a little more notice for families for the second round when we actually have an initial draft. And then possibly other languages. I know Nancy Patton asked me if it would be in anything else besides English. So thank you for reaching out to your families. I really appreciate it. I know it's a tough turnaround time. A lot of kids are starting school this week. Childcare stuff's going on. Hope everyone is staying safe. And thank you for letting me have a minute on the call.
Thanks, Cass. So we will keep you posted on how that's progressing, and have you make sure you have a chance to see it. But it'd be something that would also be really good for you to have to give to, or for providers to have to give to parents. So, and then of course, Carrie would make sure your team has the link to it as well. So, I do want to mention.
Sorry, but she just posted some great information about where to find resources. So, thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Cass. Yeah, thank you, Carrie. That's great. All right. Any questions?
This is Sydney. I just wanted to let you know I'm taking notes today, and I have captured all of the links that are in the chat in the notes. So you'll get those when you get the notes from this meeting.
Thanks, Sydney. And that's a great reminder. You'll be getting notes to the last meeting and the YouTube, the recording very soon. We're just not caught up with it. We had this holiday weekend. It's amazing how missing one day can put you so far behind. All right. Are there any final comments before we end half an hour early? And I hope that feels like a basket of treats like Karen Prow described earlier today. Anything else? All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will catch up again next week. Thanks. Bye.
Ready?